Somewhere in the wild, a creature is making a decision that will determine whether it lives through the night. Not with weapons, not with gadgets, with knowledge that took millions of years to perfect. And the terrifying part? That same knowledge could save your life, and most people have never heard a single word of it. Welcome to Wild Survival. If you want to think sharper, move smarter, and understand what it actually takes to outlast a crisis, hit subscribe right now. Because what we uncover here doesn't come from a manual. It comes from the most ruthless laboratory on Earth, nature itself. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 3 survival technologies that the modern world has quietly buried. Not because they failed, because they worked too well. We'll follow the animals who figured these solutions out long before humans ever did, and we'll show you exactly why the lessons they carry could be the most important ones you've never been taught. But first, let's set the scene. Picture this: a store has knocked out the grid, the roads are flooded, your phone is dead, your backup power gave out 6 hours ago, and the temperature is dropping. You're surrounded by gear you paid good money for, and none of it is working. Sound familiar? Maybe you've lived a version of this. Maybe you've seen someone else fall apart when their systems failed them. Here's the question I want you to sit with, and I want you to answer this in the comments below. What is the one piece of gear or technology you would trust with your life in a real survival situation? Think hard before you answer, because by the end of this video, your answer might completely change. Now, let's talk about power.
Deep in the Sonoran Desert, the kangaroo rat does something that should be scientifically impossible. It survives for years without ever drinking a single drop of water. It generates its own hydration through metabolic chemistry so efficient that it puts every piece of modern survival equipment to shame. The kangaroo rat didn't stumble onto this solution. Evolution refined it over millions of generations, selecting only for what lasts, what doesn't fail, what doesn't need to be replaced every 3 years because a newer model came out. That's the standard we should be measuring ourselves against, and it's the standard that exposes just how badly modern power technology is failing us. Think about the battery in your emergency kit. Whether it's lithium-ion or lead-acid, it is carrying a flaw baked into its very design. Inside your lithium battery, something sinister is happening with every single charge cycle. Tiny crystalline structures, jagged microscopic spikes called dendrites, are growing between the battery's internal layers, slowly, silently, until one day they pierce the barrier separating the positive and negative sides, and the result is either a dead battery or, in the worst cases, a fire. Your lead-acid deep cycle battery has its own slow death, a process called sulfation, where white crystalline deposits form on the lead plates, layer by layer, strangling the battery's ability to hold a charge until it's nothing more than a heavy, expensive paperweight. You weren't sold a power solution, you were sold a countdown clock. And the animal kingdom has known a better way for a very long time. Consider the Greenland shark. This creature moves through the darkest, coldest waters on the planet, and it does so for up to 500 years. 500 years. It doesn't burn fast and burn out. It conserves. It sustains. It is built for the long game in a way that nothing modern technology has manufactured can match. Longevity isn't a flaw in nature's design. It's the entire point. Which is exactly why Thomas Edison, of all people, once held the key to a power solution that should have changed everything. Registered under United States Patent 684,204 in 1901, Edison's nickel-iron battery was a masterpiece of resilience. The chemistry behind it is straightforward but profound. A nickel-plated positive electrode, an iron negative electrode, an alkaline electrolyte, potassium hydroxide, that acts not as a participant in the reaction, but as a facilitator. It enables the electrochemical exchange without being consumed by it. This means the battery does not degrade the way modern batteries do. You can drain a nickel-iron battery completely flat. You can leave it uncharged for a decade. You can freeze it solid. You can overcharge it, and it will come back. Again, and again, and again. Documented cases exist of nickel-iron batteries functioning after 50 years of use. Some have reportedly crossed the 100-year mark. These are not batteries. They are heirlooms. They are the grizzly bears of the power world, ancient, formidable, built to outlast everything around them. So why does almost nobody use them? Because in a marketplace that profits from replacement cycles, a battery you buy once and pass down to your grandchildren is not a product. It's a catastrophe. Corporate decision-makers looked at the nickel-iron battery and saw something terrifying, a dead revenue stream. So quietly, over decades, it was pushed aside.
Buried under billions of dollars in marketing for inferior technology that fails on schedule, right on time for you to buy the next version. The kangaroo rat doesn't upgrade its metabolism every 3 years. The Greenland shark doesn't swap out its biological systems for a newer model. Nature builds things to last, because in the wild, failure is fatal. We have forgotten that standard, and someone has been profiting from that forgetfulness. But power is only one dimension of survival, because you can have all the electricity in the world and still freeze to death in a matter of hours. The Arctic fox is one of the most thermally efficient creatures alive. In temperatures that plunge to -50 degrees Fahrenheit, this animal sits calmly in the open, barely expending energy, wrapped in fur so effective that its core temperature barely shifts. Scientists who study the Arctic fox have measured its thermal insulation and been stunned. The fur doesn't just trap heat, it reflects it back. It blocks conduction through the skin, disrupts convective airflow through the coat structure, and this is the part that separates it from everything we buy at an outdoor gear store. It handles all 3 mechanisms of heat loss simultaneously. Here's what most people don't realize about staying warm. Your body loses heat in 3 distinct ways. Through direct contact with cold surfaces, that's conduction. Through cold air moving across your skin and clothing, that's convection. And through invisible infrared radiation that bleeds out of your body like a slow leak you can't see or feel. To truly stay warm in a survival situation, you have to stop all 3. Not 2, all 3. Traditional insulation fails this test the moment conditions get hard. Down feathers, useless when wet. Compressed foam, a conductor once it's packed flat. Everything you've been sold for cold weather survival has a critical failure point, and that point tends to arrive exactly when you can least afford it. Nature solved this problem. The question is whether we bothered to pay attention. The answer, as it turns out, was discovered in a laboratory, then promptly handed off to space agencies and largely forgotten by the consumer market. It's called silica aerogel, and if you've never heard of it, that is not an accident. Silica aerogel looks like something that shouldn't exist in the physical world. It's a solid that is 90% or more composed of air. Its color is a ghostly, translucent blue-gray that makes it look like a fragment of frozen atmosphere. Hold a piece in your hand and it barely registers weight. But what happens at the molecular level is where this material becomes extraordinary. Inside aerogel, the solid silica matrix forms a nanoscale labyrinth, a maze of pores so impossibly tiny that individual air molecules become trapped within them. This is not air that can flow or move or transfer heat through convection. These molecules are immobilized, frozen in place by the geometry of the structure around them. This effectively shuts down 2 of the 3 pathways of heat loss simultaneously. And because silica itself is a poor conductor, conduction is minimized as well. The result is a material with insulating properties so extreme that researchers have held their bare hand on one side of a thin aerogel panel while a blowtorch burned at over 1,000 degrees on the other side. The hand was unharmed. Unharmed. This is not a thought experiment. NASA uses aerogel composites to protect the Mars rovers, machines that must survive temperature swings from over 70 degrees Fahrenheit during the Martian day to nearly 220 degrees below zero at night, a swing of nearly 300 degrees. Aerogel handles it every single day. Now imagine that material in your emergency gear. Imagine a jacket so thin it fits under a regular coat, yet capable of retaining body heat in conditions that would kill a person in standard equipment within hours. Imagine sleeping bags, shelters, emergency wraps, all built around a material that addresses all 3 mechanisms of heat loss with a layer thinner than your finger. Why don't you have this? Why isn't it in every emergency kit, every cold weather piece of gear sold at every outdoor retailer in the country? Because a jacket that lasts 20 years and performs flawlessly every time is not a product that a consumption-based industry can build a business model around. The Arctic fox doesn't buy a new coat each winter. Its insulation is permanent, adaptable, and perfect for its environment. The industry that sells you gear doesn't want that standard applied to what they manufacture. Planned obsolescence isn't a side effect of modern manufacturing. It is the business model. And yet, as staggering as these failures are, in power, in thermal protection, there is a third vulnerability that most survival-minded people overlook entirely until it's too late: communication. In the Amazon rainforest, a troop of capuchin monkeys demonstrate something that modern telecommunications companies charge monthly fees to replicate.
When one capuchin spots a threat, a hawk, a jaguar, a rival troop, it doesn't transmit the warning to a central tower and wait for it to be relayed back. It sends the message directly. The nearest monkey picks it up and passes it forward. Then the next. Then the next. Within seconds, the alarm has moved through the entire group, across distances and through dense canopy, without a single point of failure. If one monkey doesn't hear it, the message reroutes. The network is the group. It cannot be shut down by disabling any single node. This is not a primitive system. This is one of the most resilient communication architectures that exists in nature. And for a long time, we had nothing like it in our technology. Standard radio, the kind sold to preppers and survivalists for decades, has a fundamental structural flaw. Its signal travels in a line, a straight, unobstructed line. Put a mountain between you and your contact, and the message stops. Put a dense urban canyon between you, same result. And every time you transmit, you are broadcasting your location. Signal triangulation is not a complex operation for anyone with the right equipment. Every time you key up on a standard radio in a crisis, you are lighting yourself up on a map for anyone who wants to find you. For years, this was accepted as an unavoidable trade-off. You either communicate or you stay dark. You couldn't do both. Until Meshtastic changed the equation entirely. Meshtastic operates on a protocol called LoRa, long range, and it creates something that has never existed in civilian communication before: a true decentralized mesh network. There is no tower. There is no central relay. There is no provider. There is no subscription.
Instead, each small, low-power device acts simultaneously as a receiver and a transmitter. Your message doesn't travel in a straight line to a single destination. It hops, node to node, device to device, routing itself around obstacles, through gaps, across terrain that would stop a standard radio transmission cold. Think about what this means in a real scenario. The grid is down, cell towers are offline, emergency services are overwhelmed or unreachable. In that environment, a network of Meshtastic devices spread across a neighborhood, a town, a region, becomes a web of communication that has no single point of failure. Take out one node, the network reroutes. Take out 10 nodes, the network reroutes. The only way to silence it is to eliminate every device simultaneously, which is not a realistic threat in any scenario short of total civilizational collapse. And the security architecture built into Meshtastic is not an afterthought. Every packet of data transmitted through the network is encrypted. Your message is not readable by anyone intercepting it in transit. Your location is not broadcast. Your communication profile is not tied to an account, a phone number, or an address. You are not a target. You are simply a node in a network that doesn't know your name. The capuchin monkey's alarm call doesn't carry a return address. It carries a message, and the network does the rest. This is what modern communication was supposed to evolve toward. Instead, the telecommunications industry built a system that requires a monthly payment, relies on infrastructure it controls, and produces a product that becomes obsolete every 2 to 3 years by design. A communication system that requires nothing from them, no towers, no subscriptions, no contracts, is not a product they can sell. It is a threat to everything they've built. And so it remains largely unknown outside of a small community of technically inclined survivalists and communications hobbyists who have already quietly built the future that the industry doesn't want you to find. Now, step back for a moment and look at what we've covered. A battery technology that lasts a century, developed by one of history's greatest inventors and then strategically sidelined. An insulating material so extraordinary that space agencies use it to protect robots on another planet, while you're sold down jackets that fail in the rain. A communication network modeled on the exact architecture that animals have used to survive predators and disasters for millions of years, available to anyone, requiring no infrastructure, carrying encryption strong enough to protect your location and your messages. These are not futuristic concepts. They are not theoretical. They exist right now. You can build or acquire every single one of them. The barrier is not technology. The barrier is awareness. And that is a barrier that has been maintained very deliberately. The Greenland shark didn't survive 5 centuries by trusting whatever food source happened to be handed to it. The kangaroo rat doesn't accept the terms and conditions of the desert's water supply. The Arctic fox didn't wait for someone to sell it a better coat. The capuchin monkey didn't install a cell tower in the rainforest and start paying a monthly plan. Every animal that thrives in extreme conditions does so because it refused to be dependent on a system it didn't understand or control.
It built its resilience from the ground up, using the most durable solutions available, selected not by a marketing department, but by the merciless pressure of survival itself. True preparedness is not a shopping cart. It is not a catalog of tactical accessories or a storage unit full of gear with a brand name on the side. True preparedness is the application of knowledge that doesn't expire, science that works because the physics behind it is immovable, not because a company decided to support it this quarter. The animals understood this long before we did. The kangaroo rat knew energy efficiency. The Arctic fox knew thermal architecture. The capuchin monkey knew network resilience. And Thomas Edison, working in a world without planned obsolescence as a business strategy, built a battery that was never supposed to die. The wild does not reward dependence. It does not accommodate failure by design. It selects relentlessly and without mercy for what actually works, what actually lasts, what actually holds when everything around it is collapsing. That is the standard of wild survival, not what they sell you, what actually works. And the gap between those two things is wider and more dangerous than most people ever realize, until it's already too late. Stay curious, stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next one.